Hey, it's Gabe with Vitev, and we're going to talk about alkaline water pitchers for a couple of minutes. This is a rapidly growing market. We're getting a lot of questions now, sort of the comparative shopping type questions. I saw this one does that, does yours do this, those types of things. So we want to take a couple of minutes and give you some suggestions of what to look for as you're searching through alkaline water pitchers. There's some pretty good ones out there. There are some other ones that we would definitely recommend to avoid. So we're going to talk about some things to look for, some things to look out for, maybe more importantly, some things to be wary of. And then lastly, we'll talk about some tips and some suggestions to make sure the pitcher works as best for you as it can and meets the expectations you should have for it. So if you're searching for one of these, stay tuned. All right, so I've got our Vitev pitchers out here with me today just to show a representative sample of what the market offers. Because this is really the only significant difference that you're going to see right away as you're starting to shop through all the different pitchers that are available. That comes down to size. We have a 3.5 liter and a 2.5 liter, and we'll talk more about those in a little bit. But that in and of itself is pretty much the only difference you're going to find across the pitchers, and a substantial, makes a major impact in how you use it at least. The reason for that is because I think 100% of alkaline pitchers now, at least in this kind of model and style, there are some other ones that just drop in a mineral sack in the bottom of a normal pitcher or something like that. But in this style, kind of a gravity-fed pitcher, they're all made in China. I think 100% now of these are made in China. And therefore, it's the same plastics. It's the same quality of construction. It's the same type of lid. It's some may have a timer, some don't, but that's really just a suggestion more than it is a hard and fast rule to change. You're gonna have some color variations, but everything else is pretty much the same. And the reason for that is because they're all made by just a couple of companies who put the products into the United States and then drop ship through Amazon. So there's lots of different brand names, but if you search those names, you're really just gonna find Amazon listings, okay? It's not a legitimate company behind that name. It's a Chinese chemical company that's then drop shipping these into the United States. So as you're comparing them, you can pretty much just wipe that piece off and stop looking at it. Figure out what size you want and then go from there. What you really need to be concerned about is what's in here. And this is what you need to be looking for when it comes to what pitcher you choose. We at Vitev talk about having 5 main pillars of healthy water. The first is it needs to filter the water, and we're going to talk about the wariness piece of that in a second. It needs to make it cleaner. It needs to boost the pH up, bring the pH up to a higher level. It needs to add minerals to balance or to support that pH, because if you don't put minerals in the water and you're just inflating the pH, it's kind of like empty calories. It really doesn't help your body out at all. You want to have an antioxidant component to that with both a negative ORP or oxidative reduction potential and a molecular hydrogen piece to it. You want to look for both of those. And then lastly, you want the water to taste better. And there are some things you can look for specifically regarding taste that I'll show you as well. So those 5 things, clean, pH, antioxidant, minerals, and taste are the 5 main things you should look for when you're looking for a pitcher. Now, what should you be worried about? All right, so what do you need to be worried about or at least concerned about as you're shopping for these things and deciding which one you're going to put into your home and consume water out of and all of that? Well, as I said, these are all made in China, at least the pitchers are. So as far as I know, there's one company that manufactures their filters here in the United States. And then you have us, who controls what goes on inside of the filter and then regularly checks it to make sure things are good to go. And so we have a little bit more oversight into how the water performs, what's getting added, what's getting removed, that sort of thing. The vast majority of them are not that way. They're just brought straight out of China, put into Amazon, and ended up at people's homes. And so the problem that opens up is not that it's a poor quality product or that it's not going to boost the pH or something like that. It comes down to a marketing message or the way they're advertised, the promises that are made in the material that you'll find in the listings that you got to be concerned about. And we really don't want you to set your expectations too high, okay? This really comes out in the realm of filtration. Look at those product listings and the marketing material, and it lists all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's lists like this long from some of these companies that say it removes all of these things, right? Leads and arsenics and pesticides and fluoride, and it just goes on and on and on. Well, step back and think for a minute. The filter is only this big. Maybe some of them are a little bit larger, right? But half of that's probably alkaline media, something to bring the pH up. There's some filler in here. There's some pads in here typically, kind of like a sediment catch, that kind of stuff. So you're looking at maybe half of that is actually filtration media. The bulk of that is carbon, it doesn't remove that stuff. There's just no physical way. If that was the case, this is like a technological innovation that every home should have, because it's going to give them crystal clean water throughout. This doesn't work, okay? The reason we have high-end ceramics and ultrafiltration and reverse osmosis membranes is because you actually do need to remove that stuff out of your water. You just have to have a method that actually functions and works that way. And these things are not it. So what we've seen is a huge increase in the claims made across a lot of those listings that are not an accurate representation of the water you're going to get in your home. There's a little trick that's often done out there where you can set the limits of a water test based on just a few liters of water. And all you need to do is show a over 50% reduction of that contaminant to qualify as it passed the test. So I want to filter this for 2 liters, and I'm going to put some lead in there. And hey, it removed the lead, at least 50% of the lead, over the life of that 2 liters. After that point, it stops, but I can still say it removes lead, right? There's a lot of little games played like that. We don't play that way. We want you to actually understand filters like this, pitchers like these, are going to remove chlorine, tastes, and odors, and that's pretty much it, at least over the life of the pitcher, more than a couple of days worth of use. Okay, so we don't want you to be thinking like you're protecting your kids from all these different pesticides and all this kind of stuff. It's not going to happen. If you want to really concerned about that stuff, you're going to have to look for a higher end, more capable filter. Look for ceramic or reverse osmosis or something like that, okay? And they're not nowadays that much more expensive to put a nice countertop system on, or one that even fits under the counter that can remove the vast majority of those contaminants, okay? That's the biggest thing to be worried about. And then that just kind of increases your doubt. Like, wait a minute, if the companies are saying they're removing all of this stuff, can I really trust them on anything else? And that's where it comes down to, well, what's in the filter? Who's controlling it, right? That's what you need to be concerned about. All right, so how do you make these things work the best for you over the longest time possible? Well, first, when you get it, I would recommend taking it all apart. You know, you're gonna find most of them have a filter laying inside of the lid. It'll be sitting in here. Take it all apart, take all your components out, wash them with warm soap and water, scrub them down pretty good. And while you're doing that, take this and put it in a container of water, submerge it completely so that the neck is fully under the water as well. Allow any air bubbles and stuff to kind of work their way out. There's a lot of dust, especially carbon dust, that are in these, and so if you can soak that carbon to begin with, it'll eliminate a lot of that dust that's going to come out right away, or at least speed up the process. So let that sit in there 10 minutes or so, you know, while you're washing this. When it's done, take it out and run it under the faucet, and just let water run down through there to the point where it's coming out of the bottom of the filter. You'll be able to tell what, you know, when the grayness kind of goes away and it's a clean, clear, crisp flow of water again. Shake it a little bit, but, you know, run it in there, shake it up, mix up the carbon a little bit, run it back through. That'll just speed up the process and eliminate you from having to make multiple batches of water until it goes clean. Because when you have extra carbon in the water, it can get kind of fishy tasting. So make sure you get that out to begin with. You don't want to start right away with a bad tasting glass of water. And when that's done, now put it in and make your first batch of water. When you do that, you want to make sure that you don't have water in the top reservoir when you pour it. If you do that, you're going to pour untreated water into your glass, and oftentimes it's going to make just a mess coming around the edges as well. They're designed to pour through the bottom, not coming out the lid and leaking around the corners. So let it all flush through here first. And that's something else to think about when you're picking your sizes, because while these say 3.5 liters or 2.5 liters, they're really not. That's the total volume from top to bottom, but you're only going to use, you know, this much. So plan on 3/4 or so of whatever that sticker volume is, or the box volume that's going to, you know, advertise it. A 3.5 liter is much more like a 2.25 or so liters of actual water. When you make it, make sure that you keep the filter, at least the bottom portion of the filter, underwater. Okay, so never let it run to the point where the water is sitting down below the level of the base of the filter. You want this to stay wet, and that'll kind of wick up water up into the pitcher or into the filter. You also want to keep the minerals in contact with the water. If you separate them, now you're going to start degrading the water a little bit, or the water is going to start degrading. So make sure this is in contact with the water all the time. You can keep it in the fridge, you can keep it on the countertop, that really doesn't matter. Just make sure this doesn't start to dry out and lose contact with water. Keep an eye on everybody's source waters are a little bit different as far as hardness and what kind of scale you're going to have. When you raise the pH of water up, oftentimes you'll see the hardness precipitate out a little bit. So some people can get a little bit of a scale or a coating on the plastics in the pitcher. If that's you, then the best thing to do for that to clean it. Sometimes soap and water doesn't work as well as it could. Put a little ammonia in there, and that ammonia will cut that scale down pretty quickly, or even a little vinegar can do it as well. In fact, I should say vinegar, not ammonia. Use vinegar. Most people don't have ammonia in their homes anymore. So yeah, vinegar, a little bit of that on there, let it sit. We'll take that scale off. And then lastly, filter life. A lot of these, I said, are timers that tell you, you have this many users and replace it when the little thing starts flashing. That's good and bad, but there's a lot of variations in source water. The easiest way you're gonna be able to tell if you need a new one of these is by taste, actually. You'll just be able to taste the chlorine starting to come back in the water. And for most people, the average is, about every 2 months, you'll be replacing one of these in your pitcher if you use it a couple of gallons a day. If not, you can maybe stretch it a little bit longer, but really it's your palate that will make the biggest difference in knowing when to change the filter. Put a little mark in your phone, on your calendar that says, hey, check it about this point, kind of start to pay attention a little bit more. But typically what we find is people have a significant improvement in taste when they replace their filter and they're like, oh wow, I didn't know how bad it was. So you got to keep an eye on that. And other than that, these things work all the time. We recommend using tap water for these and not bottled water. You could use both, but really tap water is kind of how these are designed to be used. If you do that, there's really nothing that's going to go wrong. There's really no issues that you're going to have to deal with. They're simple, they're easy, they're gravity fed. There's really no moving parts. Simply just fill it up and pour. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, like I said, you can contact us. We'll talk to you. We use these every day. Your families use them. We trust them. We keep an eye on them. And we're happy to help answer any questions you may have.